evening, everybody, and welcome back to episode 16 of Wilbur Talks FPL, where we talk everything the Premier League and FPL, of course, as is in the title. We are back for the first pod of the new year, so Happy New Year to you all. We haven't done a pod since before Christmas, so we've got a few weeks to be catching up on, but we are back, 3-man strong, as usual. We have got Charlie and Sam back again. How are you both? Did you have a good Christmas and New Year break?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Happy to be back.
Look, not too bad now. Got a little bit of COVID over Christmas, unfortunately, but back now.
Half from ideal, but you're back. We're putting you to work, so you're back to 100%, and we're going to have some fun again tonight. So just a brief kind of overview of what we're going to go through on the pod today. So we're just going to have a look back. We've had 3 game weeks, well, 2.5 currently in the game week. There's actually a game tonight and then a game tomorrow, so probably 90% of the way through the game week. So basically 3 game weeks to cover. We're going to have a look at how we've done in those game weeks. Then we're going to have a kind of a review of the season so far, and then we're going to have a bit of a preview, trying our best to advise going forward, but there's a lot of difficult conditions currently, so we'll try our best to advise. But I think the key message we'll probably all get to at some point is just leaving the transfers to the last minute. And as we've seen, because the Everton game is meant to be on today, and the postponements can still happen after the game week deadline anyway. So sometimes you can prepare, but then something comes in afterwards. So we'll try our best with that one. So if we get straight into it, so if we're looking back over the last 3 game weeks, we'll go over to the star man of the pod, shall we call him, in terms of ranked performance. So if we go over to you, Charlie, how has your last 3 weeks been, and how are you doing rank-wise?
Yeah, I'll take that nickname. Thank you. We can use that going forward. That's great. Yeah, so last 3 weeks, a bit up and down, as I'm sure everyone has really, and that kind of the story of the season at the moment. So the first of those 3 weeks, game week 19, was my season low of 29 points, and I also took a hit, so technically that's 25 points. Which, yeah, so I think when we last spoke, I was around 2k. That dropped me down to just inside top 10k. And then the following game week, that hit then paid off. It didn't pay off in the game week itself, but then the following week, both the players that I brought in, which I believe was Bowen and Ronaldo, got double figures the week after, and then had one of my better weeks that week. So, yeah, interesting just to see how the hits may not pay off immediately, but it does get if it gets your team into a better place, then it may be worthwhile going for it. And then we decided to have even more fun for game week 21, and I took a -8. That's the game week we're currently on. I think I just got a bit excited by all the announcements of the doubles and so on. So I've ended up tripling up on West Ham. I brought in Demarai Gray as well, which annoyingly that second game of his double got cancelled, like you said. So we're currently sitting around 6k with 3 West Ham to play tomorrow. So I'm hoping, yeah, should be a pretty reasonable score. I'm on 41 at the moment. Would hope to at least hit 50, if not 60, if some of the West Ham guys can do well. So yeah, it's kind of up and down. Yeah, just going for a little bit more. Those were my first hits of the season. And I think at times like these, you have just got to play a bit more week to week and focus on some of these doubles that are presenting themselves. So yeah, pretty pleased. Not dropping too far, not rising too much. So kind of middling out, I think.
Definitely can't complain with that rank, really. Like you said, you was touching on like 2 or 3k, weren't you? And so you're up there. You're in amongst them. I can't imagine when you get that high, there's a huge amount between the places as well. So it makes it really interesting. Well, it could be like one player that makes a difference. I think your team is a very natural kind of link to my team, because I said this to you before the game week started, that our starting 11 is exactly the same except for one player, which I think was Watkins and King, though we have different between each other. So my current game week is very similar to yours. The fact I think have you got someone coming off the bench for Watkins? Because I don't think Watkins played, did he? So I imagine we're around very similar points wise. Obviously the issue with Gray, I only took a -4 though, because I already had Gray, so my -4, I'm trying to think of, I brought in 2 West Ham because I didn't have Antonio. I brought in Ben Johnson as well. I think we've all got Ben Johnson, and he didn't particularly go well the first game, but hopefully he does something tomorrow night as well. And I think the main differential this week is literally just being who your captain, and it's just between Antonio and Bowen. And so far, Antonio's winning that race slightly, but I think over the next game it's not going to change a great deal. So I'm currently on 45 minus 4, so basically 41. If we go back a week, I think Charlie's trying to copy my way to success at the minute. You mentioned Ronaldo and Bowen, they were for my team, so I got 57 last week, not too bad. Especially following on from Gameweek 19, which, similar to Charlie, was my all-time low. One more point though, I got 30. Literally Son, I think, looking at this, Son and De Gea are the only players who actually returned for me. A tasty Gameweek rank of 5.8 million. So I couldn't even get a full 11 out there. That's all the cancellations going on. So I am currently ranked 209,000, which is better than it was, but obviously it's not ideal. But we're clawing our way back, and as we were just touched on before the pod, I'm clawing my way back to certain Sam, who is currently 21 points above me. So would you like to just cover your few game weeks, Sam?
Yeah, certainly. Did you say you were 200 and something thousand?
Yeah, 209,000 it says currently on there.
And so 21 points. There's about 80,000 places rank difference between us, covered by just 21 points. So it's pretty close. Yeah, it's been a tough few weeks with FPL. We're just fallen on the wrong side of every coin of COVID matches getting called off and whatnot. Game week 19 was actually my best game week in a while, and then I've just sort of hovered around average. Game week 21 wasn't too bad. Yeah, I mean, it's been particularly uneventful, really, hasn't it, in terms of FPL? Nice to see you both take on my advice about Damari Gray. Shame it's taken you to game week 21 to acknowledge it, by which point he's horribly out of form. And Everton are going down, so, that's okay, no problem. And I'm pleasantly surprised to see everybody bringing in Cristiano, because he's turning out to be quite the fraud indeed. So, overall, it's been a weird few weeks, to be fair, for anyone involved with FPL in any kind of contingent. And like as you as a content creator will, and anyone involved in FPL, even just down to the casual, I think there's probably been an all-time high disengagement from casuals across the community. So we've got to fight to get the FPL flag flying high again, and that is going to start with some spicy transfers, and we just need games on. We need to get the momentum back for Fantasy Premier League.
Slate my Damari Gray though, because I've had him for a while. Can't blame me on that one.
Well, I mean, if you've had him for a while, then the questions need to be asked longer because Everton have been woeful for a long time.
Yeah.
So maybe there's even more questions that need to be asked for the long-term hold of Damari Gray.
That probably explains why I'm lower than you both, really, doesn't it? But yeah, I think you made a comment before we started, didn't we, that you've not really looked at the FPL app for a week or so since the last.
Yeah, in all honesty, really. I don't think. I think it's definitely been a week since I opened the FPL app, at least, which is crazy, really. But obviously, we've had cup games going on and whatnot, and I think Premier League fixtures back this weekend, so definitely have to reopen it again and get some of these red, orange flags out of here, which is a concerning status. I've currently, out of my 15-man setup, got 7 injury or caution flags, so it's going to be an expensive week.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to the how we're looking for the next game week when we get further on, but that just sounds like a bit of a disaster, but we'll talk about that one when we get there. But yeah, like I said, so what did you say? You're about 130k, is it you're at now? What was it that you said?
I think 127,
yeah.
482.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not too bad. It's still pretty respectable rank, I think. But yeah, certainly a long way off the top 10k that we were for a long time. Yeah, a slight fall from grace, but it's not about how you start; it's about how you finish. So the fight back is on.
Only about halfway through, so plenty of time to change it. And I think definitely this game week's very odd, isn't it? In the fact that we've kind of had a round of fixtures and then you just got odd fixtures in the next week, so it's extending it a lot more. But hopefully, when we get to the weekend, where hopefully we'll have a full set of fixtures, well, famous last words, well, as many as possible, it'll be more engaging and everyone will be back on. I think the bit that's engaging at the minute is it's difficult to even plan what your transfers are going to be because you don't even know if the team's going to be playing. So it's difficult. So I think it's just key in making late transfers at the minute when you've got all the news possible. I know a few weeks ago the Villa game got cancelled like 30 minutes before the deadline, and I did my transfers about an hour before the deadline thinking it'll be safe, but even that wasn't safe. So it's uncertain times, so just get all the information and have as much time as possible, I think, at the minute. But that kind of rounds up where we were up to the current game week. So because there's a lot of uncertainty around the FPL, we're going to have a bit of a mini kind of season review of the season so far. I'm going to start the discussion with trying to pick our basically team of the season so far. So we're going to run through positions, get everyone's thoughts on who we think are the best candidates in those positions, just throw some names into the hat, and then basically we need to decide between the three of us who we're going to go for in those positions. So logically, in position order, we need to start with goalkeeper. So Charlie, any names you want to throw into the hat to start with your team of the season goalkeeper so far?
Yeah, there's a few. I think. Well, so I don't really want to say him for reasons I'll come to in a sec. I think the fact Man City have the most clean sheets, that automatically makes you think about Edison. But actually, to be honest, I think his role in those clean sheets has been pretty limited because their defence has just been so good. So I think he's automatically got to be included just because of the number of clean sheets. But I don't really want us to pick him just because I don't feel like he's played as big a part in that. I think Ramsdale, I've got to mention him, of course. I think has certainly save percentage wise and in terms of number of saves being made and sort of the flip side to what Edison has been, Ramsdale's been playing a massive part in our clean sheets. So I think I've absolutely got to throw him in the ring. The other name I wanted to add was Jose Sarr from Wolves. He's currently got the highest save percentage in the league, 85.3%, and that's with a lot of saves as well. It's not like he's not taking an active role or the defence is doing all the work for him. And I didn't really see myself throwing a Wolves keeper into the potential team of the season. But it kind of just passed me by. I knew they were being good defensively, but hadn't really appreciated how good they've been. They've conceded the second least number of goals, only to Man City, and that's including results like the 0-0 against Chelsea. They've only conceded 1 to both Liverpool and Man City. They've been so good defensively, and it has just kind of passed me by. So I had to throw Sarr in there as well. So I think I would say Sarr, just not to appear biased for Ramsdale, but I do appreciate that's a very outside pick based on stats, maybe, rather than other stuff.
Let Sam add what he has in terms of goalkeepers first, and then it'll come back around to me. What do you think of those? Have you got anyone else to add to those picks?
Yeah, I don't really have too much more to add to that. I don't think you said Mendy from Chelsea, right, Charlie? I think he's the only one.
Say him.
Yeah, I think he's the only one I'd add into that mix. Is the first year really for a number of years where we haven't sort of just had a slam dunk pick with either Edison or Alisson. So I had 3. I'll sort of teeter around Edison, but on the same wavelength as Charlie just explained very well. I actually don't think Edison's actually had too much to do with the amount of Man City clean sheets, and actually in the high pressure moments he's made his fair share of mistakes as well this season. So I think it's probably between Ramsdale, Mendy and Sarr. I would probably just stick my head over the line for Sarr based on, like Charlie said, he's averaging 2.8 saves a game, 59 saves in 21 games. Pretty high save ratio as well, as Charlie said. So I would probably just be going for Sarr just. I actually think Ramsdale's a pretty good candidate as well. So I'd be probably happy with either of those two, but don't know what your thoughts are, Will.
Yeah, so I had a top 3. So my top was Sarr, second was Ramsdale, and then third I had De Gea, which might be slightly biased, but
You joking?
I'm not
It's
joking.
going to be a long team of the season finish, isn't it?
No, but I think
You wait till we get to centre back.
yeah, but in terms of like the defense is shocking, like, but De Gea has been like saved us quite a few points, even though we still look terrible. He's basically like I'm putting a very an obvious comparison here to Ramsdale, but Ramsdale like in terms of saves, I'd argue De Gea's even made more than Ramsdale, but Ramsdale's got a better defence in front of him. I think there's arguments. Like, I'm not saying De Gea is the best one there, but I'm just saying I'm mentioning his name because it's been one of his best seasons in a few seasons, and if the defence was maybe better, it might make him look better. But I'm not debating him as being number one. I'm just mentioning his name.
To be fair to you, I was just looking just then as you were talking. He has made the most saves of any keeper this season, but that is just because of the number of shots he's facing. His save percentage is still fairly low compared to all the other guys we're talking about. So yeah, I think save like purely or save number wise, that's a fair comment. But I think, as I say, that I think that's more to do with the lack of defence and allowing shots on, just the pure number of shots they face.
So I think from what we're saying, that Sarr.
Sounds like we're all in agreement on Sarr.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, Sarr.
Right, Sarr's in. Give him the number one.
No, it said straight in with a Wolves player, so we're mixing it up straight away. Right, so we move on to defence. I feel like two of these positions are going to be a lot easier than the rest. So I feel like if we start with fullbacks, I don't think there's going to be a lot of question about this. So if I throw the two names out that I've got a fullback straight away with Trent and Cancelo, would we be going far away from that, Sam?
Well, only if we were insisting that we would probably have a right back and then a left back. But if we're saying that Cancelo's got the flexibility to play left back, which he's shown that he's probably got the flexibility to play it better than any left back in the league this year, then yeah, I mean it's got to be those two, in my personal opinion. Reece James has had an outstanding start to the season until he got injured. And Andy Robertson's had a really good start to the season as well for Liverpool, but those two, Cancelo and Trent, have just been on another planet. I think we talked about in a pod earlier in the year, and we were talking about which one of those two could be the best in world football at the moment. So, I mean, they both make it into the Premier League team this season so far for me, with Trent at right back and Cancelo at left back.
Because he's played a lot of his games there. I think like a lot of the time it was Walker right back and him left back. So you've seen he can play both sides. So I would argue that he's played more than 50% of his games at left back. So I'd count him as a left back.
Yeah.
But either way, I think you could still put two fullbacks in there. Really. What would you say beyond that, Charlie?
Yep, not much more to add really. Those two are clear favourites for me. I agree with the honourable mentions that Sam included. But yeah, I do think Trent's a clear pick on the right, and I do think Cancelo's been the best left back in the league. Anyway, even though that's not his first position. So yeah, happy with those two, to be honest.
That's an easy. It's going well so far. So I feel like the next position will be a bit more contentious. So do you want to start us with centre back, Sam?
Yeah, so I think this is definitely harder to pick. There's been some really outstanding centre-back performances so far this year. And it's notable that a lot of the big centre-back performances have come from the teams at the top of the league. And as you go further forward, you've had more contributions from those, maybe just outside of the top four on the fringes, pushing around. I've gone for, the two that I've picked in my 11 were Diaz and Rudiger. Which pained me to leave Van Dijk out, but I think Diaz for me has been really stepped up a level this year for Man City. I think he's been outstanding, and then Rudiger's just been. I've watched a lot of Chelsea this season, and it's just been entertaining because they've been in the title race. Try and watch the teams that are in the race as well. Rudiger is annoyingly good. Diaz is class. I really enjoy watching Diaz play centre back, and I enjoy watching Van Dijk play centre back. Rudiger, I don't enjoy watching because he's just like that cretinous centre back that roughs up people. Chelsea were playing Liverpool the other day, and from a corner, he's undone the goalkeeper's glove as he's walking around behind. It's like that. It just sums him up in a nutshell. But he's undeniably fantastic at centre back, and I think, although it's like literally flip a coin between any of them, I think there's honourable shout outs for Thiago Silva at Chelsea. He's definitely been a really good man for like the big one-off occasion. Maybe looked a little bit off the pace in a couple of games, but overall he's had a good start to the season. Laporte at City's done well as well, and obviously Van Dijk was my one that was sort of a flip of the coin between Rudiger and Van Dijk, really, because I think Diaz for me has to be in. So yeah, Diaz and Rudiger for me. Van Dijk, I wouldn't be opposed to having in, but it's going to be the other two, I think. Just
Yeah, I think what I like about Rudiger is that he always comes out from the back as well. It's aggressive, always running forward at the same time.
yeah,
Well, I thought it was going to be difficult centre back, but I think coming from my point of view, I've got a lot of the same names in there. I had, again, as you said, chose Rudiger and Diaz. And then I had honourable mentions to Van Dijk, and I threw Conor Cody in there as well. Talked about how good the Wolves' defence has been, but I had him as kind of the fourth choice, Conor Cody, using the fact that, using the FPL logic, I wouldn't be doubling up on the Wolves' defence. So I would be going for Rudiger and Diaz. So I think it's over to Charlie to persuade us not to go for either of those two.
Well, at the risk of making this section very boring, I also went with Diaz and Rudiger as my first two choices. I think importantly, I think as well that both, obviously, as we said, but the Chelsea and Man City defences have been crazy good, and I think those two in their defences have been the mainstays. It's always been their pairings that have been sort of rotated in and out, and like Chelsea, you've got Thiago Silva, Azpilicueta, like Chalobah, whoever else, and then Diaz with Laporte and Stones and whoever. But it's always been those two that have been the key kind of fixtures in that defence. So I think they're so important to their teams as well from a leadership point of view. And like you say as well, Will, about Rudiger's sort of progressive play, that I hadn't really noticed that before this season. But he really seems to have stepped up, and particularly in that system, seems to really have that license to get forward. He's scored quite a couple of goals as well. And just seems to be that extra man in a good defence. So I'm happy with those two. I did have Van Dijk as my third. I think if he's just not quite had, I think it's because maybe of his sort of seasons of a couple of years ago where he was just insanely good. It's just quite hard to live up to that. And I think I think on this season's performances alone, Diaz and Rudiger take it for me.
Some random names in here when it gets to midfield because we're just agreeing too much here. But looking at some of my midfield picks, I think it might get a bit more fruity when we get there. So I think we're pretty much agreed there, aren't we? We've got back four of Trent, Cancelo at fullback, and then Rudiger and Diaz in the middle. Set up the back four in front of Sarr. So we will move into midfield. So just a quick question before we get into the midfield. How have you guys lined up in terms of formation? Because I've gone for kind of like two centre midfielders, three attacking midfielders, and a striker. So like a 4-2-3-1 formation. I don't know how you guys have set up.
Yeah, I mean, mine can fit that. I'm a 4-3-3, but it can fit either way.
You can kind of all merge in together.
Yeah. Probably 4-1 lots.
4-1 lots. I was trying to get a balanced team at the same time.
I don't even know. Yeah, I mean,
that sounds like a Guardiola system. That
you could do like some variation of 4-3-3, I guess.
All right, so should we?
It's very Guardiola. Yeah.
we stick to midfielders.
Yeah. So should we should we start with like central midfielders, like who I would imagine as a DM or like a box-to-box midfielder. So we start there. So Charlie, if you can give me like one or two recommendations for here, and then we can decide on the formation as we get along.
Yeah, I think in terms of like a DM, I didn't necessarily have an absolute standout. The kind of players I'm thinking of would be players like Rodri or Declan Rice. I think have both been really good at kind of turning defence into attack. in both their teams. I think Rice particularly has kind of surprised me in that, in how able he is to carry the ball forwards. I knew he was good defensively, but didn't quite appreciate how good he is transitioning the ball and moving it forward. And I think he was pretty key in a lot of how successful they were at the beginning of the season, West Ham. If I was to move to maybe a more central midfielder, I think I've got to go with Gallagher. He has been a bit hit and miss in terms of some of his goals and assists, but in terms of his work rate, he's doing a lot defensively, which I think is kind of quite going unnoticed quite a lot. He's second in the whole league for pressures, so that's how many times you're sort of pressuring the opposition player with the ball. And that's kind of the story with Crystal Palace as a whole. They've kind of transformed into this pressing team, which again I hadn't really appreciated until I was digging into some of the stats. But yeah, I think Gallagher's just kind of really helped Palace particularly, and he's kind of been that creative player in the middle of the park, but also plays and does the sort of the hard yards as well in the middle of the park that he maybe doesn't get the credit for. So, and on a similar vein as well, actually, just to chuck in a third name, I want to mention Bernardo Silva as well, because I think in a similar mould, he's both in terms of his attacking play, but also just his pure work rate. He just runs and runs and runs. So I think those three, for me at least, have been kind of my key players, more sort of defensively in the middle, but then also, yeah, both Gallagher and Bernardo obviously can do it going forwards as well.
What are your thoughts of those, Sam, compared to your picks?
Yeah, well, I also have Gallagher in my midfield. I actually went for Rodri as well. I think this season Rodri has been absolutely outstanding for City. Honourable mention to Fabinho for Liverpool, who I think has also been very, very good. Rodri's just been on another level good for Man City in terms of that pure defensive sit, do the dirty work. Like Charlie said, Rice has been decent. For me, I think Rodri and Fabinho have set the standard for that position over the course of the season. I think Rodri's been really good. And then, yeah, I mean, my other midfielder's it's definitely more of a winger, so it's probably not too appropriate in there. Mason Mount got a shout. I've got Bernardo as an honourable mention. I probably would have, at one point I had Bernardo in over Rodri, and I thought, well, it's basically just no midfield. It's like Gallagher as a central midfielder on his own. But no, it's Rodri and Gallagher in the middle for me, I guess.
So, well, similar and not so similar. So I was lining up with Rice, which would be the more defensive midfielder, and then I kind of had a deep playmaker in someone we've not mentioned yet, in Tielemans for Leicester, who I had those as my first choice too, and it was kind of, I was between Tielemans and Gallagher for that other spot, so I was kind of set on Rice as that DM. I hadn't kind of thought about Rodri. I've seen him play quite a few times and be decent in that position, so I think we'd need the midfielder in there of Rice or Rodri would be the clear choice between those two. And then we'll probably need to set on a formation if we'd have another midfielder, or if we're going all out attacker. We might need to discuss the attacking midfielders before we decide on that. So I think to start with, we need to decide between Rice and Rodri. So are you both saying you'd? I know Charlie's mentioned Rice. Would you go with Rice or Rodri, Charlie?
I think I would go Rodri just because. Okay. So I mentioned them both, and I think Rice, particularly in the beginning half of the season, or like first half of the first half of the season, was good. But I think just down to pure consistency, and you could say that's partly down to the team as well. But I think, yeah, down to consistency, I think I'd edge it to Rodri if we were going to choose between the two.
Would you be similar as well, Sam? Saying Rodri over Rice?
Well, yeah, I think Rodri's been, as I said, the elite this season. So, I would take Rodri over Rice. Rice hasn't had a bad season, but I agree with what Charlie just said there. He started really well when West Ham were flying high, and they're still doing pretty well, to be fair. But yeah, I would go Rodri.
I'm happy to accept defeat in 2-1 in Rodri votes, in the fact that he's not that bad an option, and I should have really, like, Rice has stuck in my head straight away as the top option, but I'm happy to concede 2-1 and put Rodri in there. So we've got at least one defensively minded midfielder, and then we're going to roll over to Sam and let him start on the more attacking-minded midfielders before we start on the formation. Go on, Sam.
Okay, so yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one with formations. This, I guess this player you could just say had, if you were running like a 4-2-3-1, I would probably, based on my other selections, play this guy as a central attacking midfielder. But I've gone for Foden. Some other good options in there. In an offensive midfield position. I was close to picking Saka because I think he's done well for Arsenal, but I don't really know whether you'd really class him as. I think you would class him as an offensive midfielder. Maybe Bernardo would get a shout in this role as well. I think Foden this year has just really sort of stepped into that level of. There was so many seasons where there was so much talk about will Foden fill, excuse the pun, but fill the boots of David Silva when he's gone off. And this year there hasn't been any talk about it, and that's because he's just done it. Like in other years, there's just been the comparison made at so many stages throughout the season. Is he going to be? Can he do what David Silva does there? Can he do what David Silva does there? And this year, it's wow. Can anyone do what Phil Foden's doing now? He's had a more consistent run in the team. He's playing in Champions League games. Dictating games, scoring goals. He absolutely tore Liverpool apart at Anfield earlier in the season. For me, Foden gets the nod in an attacking midfield position.
Discuss any other ones you've got, or should we discuss Foden?
Well, yeah, but I do. Well, we can run through it because I've only really got one out and out striker in the team. So I mean, the other three I would set up as three attacking midfielders. I think Salah for me has been player of the season, so he gets the nod on one side, and then I've gone for Jared Bowen from West Ham on the other side. I think Bowen's been, in my opinion, one of the most exciting players to watch in the league. He's explosive. He's got good goals and assist contributions. And has been a big reason as to why West Ham have done so well this season. I've gone for both. I've gone for Bowen over Son. I think Son's just had a little bit more inconsistency, and Spurs have underachieved as a team. But yeah, I think Bowen, in my opinion, deserved of a space. But of those three, Salah for me is a non-negotiable. I'd be surprised if we haven't all picked Salah, and then there's probably some variance in Foden and Bowen, but those three for me have been brilliant this season.
Yeah, so if I touch on where I am, so my attacking three was, I agree with Salah. I don't think we'll have any doubt about Salah. I also had Bowen, but then I had Son over Foden. Foden hasn't been in my thinking at all. I just don't. He's not been consistent enough for me. It's just he wouldn't get in my reserve 11. And that's how I feel about Foden. I get where you can have Spurs, but I think to be an established City player, you need more consistency, and he's just not at that level for me yet. He can have Spurs where he'll score goals and look threatening, but he needs to do it on a more consistent basis to be calling him like a David Silva level, as we mentioned. There's no doubt he's on the way there, but he's not done it consistently enough over this season. You've seen it in 2 or 3 game bursts, but not consistently enough. Which again you could say about, you mentioned about Son, so I've got Son in my team. But I would argue that he's been the most consistent attacking outlet for Spurs in kind of getting them through a rough patch, especially at the start of the season when Kane wasn't firing at all. So that would be my argument between those attacking midfielders. I don't have any issue. I don't think Charlie will have issue with Salah. Bowen I'm happy with there, and it's just that third attacking midfielders. But I think that we've got Son and Foden in there ring at the minute. And what have you got in terms of that, Charlie?
Yeah, so obviously, Salah makes it.
Yeah.
I mean, my setup was a 4-3-3, so I don't really have a centre attacking mid. I think I probably would give it to Foden if we were going to set it up that way. Because I do fall on what's on Sam's side of thinking. I think when he does play, and I think also just because a lot this season, from when I've seen him when he's not been scoring goals, it's because he's usually being asked to do something very specific tactically by Guardiola. So I think that in itself kind of also shows how vital he is within a team. So I think I would put him in if we were going like a 4-2-3-1 maybe, and put him as the central attacking midfielder. But in my team, because I'm playing the 4-3-3, I've got Bernardo effectively in as more of a CM. I on the left, so obviously I've got Salah on the right, and then on the left wing I've got Son. Again, similar kind of debate to both of you. It's kind of between Son and Bowen for me. I think the reason I just went Son is just because I feel like West Ham have been a better team, and Bowen's benefited as part of that, whereas Son has effectively been in what has been a very poor Tottenham team and still managed to come out with some good returns. I think, and that's for me, just in my mind anyway, that's kind of been the history of Son at Spurs, really, just regardless of managers coming in and out and the team performance as a whole. He just seems to be much more consistent across seasons than any of the other players in the team. So I have given it to Son. But I can certainly see the arguments for Bowen in terms of the way that he's just seemed to have taken it to a completely another level than we've seen from him before. Certainly in terms of his assist play and sort of build-up play. Of course, I have to give some shout-outs to my Arsenal guys, so particularly Saka and Smith Rowe. I think beginning of the season on the pod, I think even I was talking how I didn't really think they necessarily had the sort of finishing touch, which they've clearly proven me wrong to this point. It seems to have developed into their game. They're of course nowhere near where the top point, but it's been a massive improvement from both of them. So that's been really exciting to watch as an Arsenal fan. But so my kind of wingers are Salah and Son are the ones that I've gone with.
The debate of kind of like 3 players for 2 positions, kind of between Foden, well, it's kind of Foden, Son, I think is the main one. Kind of all touched on Bowen, but you didn't have him starting, did you, Charlie? So it's a bit. I think we'd have to work out what formation we're playing, because you mentioned Foden, but then we've also mentioned Bernardo Silva, and I would say Bernardo Silva would be in any team ahead of Foden based on this season.
Yeah. So if we're doing it between those two,
I think I'm not opposed to putting Son in. Sorry, and I'm not opposed to putting Son in. I think Son. I would agree with what Charlie says. Spurs have been abject this season up until Conte came in, and he's probably been the shining light. I wouldn't be opposed to putting Son in. I think it'd be harsh to leave Foden out, to be honest. But based on the fact that we all appear to agree on Salah, there's probably 2.5 votes in favour of Bowen. I mean, I wouldn't be disapproving of putting Son in. Maybe you play Son in the 10 or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I was
just try to find a way of keeping them in.
I was going to say, like, if we lined up with, for example, Rodri at DM, Bernardo Silva has kind of a box-to-box, he's kind of been playing that kind of role, hasn't he, for City quite a lot. And then
are we putting Bernardo in? I feel like Conor Gallagher's got to go in, man.
I do feel we have to put Gallagher in.
I think Gallagher has.
I'm just giving you an idea of the formation. Like, so we'd have like 2 midfielders there. Then we'd have to have like Son or Salah as a support striker, with either Son or Salah out wide, and then Bowen on the other wing.
Yeah, I think you could put Bowen on the left, Salah on the right.
And then Son behind the striker.
Son in the hole, but Gallagher's got to be in. He has been one of the best midfielders in the league this season so far. Definitely. In a year where midfield performances haven't exactly been outstanding from the big boys. I think Gallagher's got to be in.
Is that what
a name we haven't even spoken about is Kante, who's been decent as well for Chelsea. But
I think it's probably more like last season in the Champions League run, I'd say, rather than this season.
I agree.
So would we go Gallagher? Gallagher was my second choice behind Tielemans, but no one else mentioned Tielemans, so I have no issue going Gallagher.
Yeah, I think Gallagher. So I think maybe if we go 4-2-3-1, Gallagher and Rodri as the 2 centre mids, Salah, Bowen, Son as your kind of attacking three.
Yeah,
behind the striker.
we'd have to get some fluidity between those attacking midfielders and work out. Have to do some pep work with them or something, trying to work out how the hell we just get them playing wherever. We'd have to have them all swapping and all being support strikers.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they could all play strikers, well, because Bowen plays strikers sometimes as well. So nice fluid front three there behind the striker. So I don't think we've done too bad. So I'm quite interested to what we're going to mention in this striker spot. So, Charlie, do you want us to start us with your striker thoughts?
So, after a number of thoughts about how to go, whether I wanted a false nine, whether I wanted an out-and-out striker, I think it's fair to say the kind of big names in this position haven't really shown up this season. You know, the likes of like Vardy, Kane, Ronaldo, you'd say as well. I don't think any of them are deserving of being in the conversation for team of the season. The name I've gone for is Jota. I think he's just taken that Liverpool attack to another level in the aspect, and I think that's benefited Salah as well. Is he's just created that extra threat that, you know, previously you would think it's either coming from Salah or Mane. Firmino just helps with the build up and defensive play and winning the ball back for Salah and Mane. But having Jota as an out-and-out striker in that team as well just adds so much more to that team, and obviously as the rotation option as well, which has benefited the team as a whole. But I think both in terms of his importance to the team, but also just clearly he's got his goal record this season as well is just something to be really impressed by. So yeah, Jota's my main pick. I think, and we're going to come on to some of the other kind of award sections later. I think there's got to be an honourable mention for Dennis, just because he's been so good for Watford, and completely surprised, I think, a lot of people to score that many goals for a very, very poor team that probably deserve to be relegated eventually, but who knows if they will or not. But yeah, I did want to just get a shout in for Dennis, but Jota's my main pick.
What was about that, Sam?
Both of those were my honourable mentions, actually. Jota's has been great. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Dennis has been a really big surprise. It's been fantastic. I disagree. I don't think Watford deserve to go down. I think there's 3 other teams that are worse than Watford in the league this season. I've actually gone for Antonio from West Ham. I think he's just been. I think we started at the beginning of the year by saying if Antonio can stay fit, he's going to be, some force this year for West Ham, and he's pretty much stayed fit. To be fair, up until he might have picked up an injury the other night. But for the team of the season so far, I think Antonio has been the probably most unplayable, genuine number 9 in the league. Goals, physicality, pace, chipped in with assists. I can't look past Antonio for me.
So we've mentioned the top 3 that I was going to mention, but I've picked the other one. So I've picked Dennis in the team. So we've all picked someone else. So we've all picked someone different, but my honourable mentions was Antonio in second and Jota in third. The reason I chose Dennis, because the team he's playing in is kind of carrying that team somewhat most of the season, and they've just been dead and buried without him. Antonio, I didn't put in the team because I feel like he had a good month at the start of the season and he's not been as good since. If he kept that consistency over the season, then fair play, stayed fit, but I don't think he's been as potent like in November, December kind of time. He's got the odd goal or so. And then Jota, he's got the goals, but I'd argue anyone in that position for Liverpool could get those goals. Not taking anything away from his quality, but I rank Dennis scoring 8 goals for Watford higher than Jota scoring 10 goals for Jota in a Liverpool side. That's how I would be ranking them. So we've got
Antonio has the same number of goals and assists as Dennis. They both have 8 goals.
But he's in a worse team, isn't
he? Yeah, that's true.
I would also say that because and particularly owning him through this period, Antonio did have, I'm just counting up now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, an 8-week goal drought, which compared to the other 2 who obviously didn't, now you may say, well, he's got the same as Dennis anyway. So to what extent does that matter? But also, it just feels like he's. Yeah, it's difficult to say. I think I would want to give it to one of Dennis or Jota personally. I think Antonio's had to do a lot more other work, and if we're just talking out and out striker, I would want to give it to Dennis or Jota myself.
Yeah, I think
of those two. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say I haven't got the actual stats on it, but I could imagine that Dennis's goals have contributed to a lot more points for Watford than Antonio's have. Because I think a lot of Antonio's goals earlier on were in like 4-1 wins. So it's quite significant, Dennis's goals, compared to some of Antonio's as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think for me, I would say Antonio. If I had to pick out of the other two, I would go for Dennis over Jota. I think Jota's had a great year so far. Don't get me wrong. And as a Liverpool fan, I'm very pleased he's playing for us. But I think in terms of when we're talking about putting our team of the season together, I don't think I would necessarily be putting Jota ahead of either of the other two. For that reason, I'd probably have to go for Dennis.
Okay, so we agreed to have a Watford player in our team of the season so far. It'll be interesting. I'm going to keep this and then compare it to what we get at the end of the season and see if we've got any kind of recency bias in there as well when it comes to the second half of the season. So we're happy with Dennis there, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Sure. Yeah.
So we'll just recap on the team. So we've got Sarr in goal. We'll have Trent playing right back, Cancelo playing left back, Rudiger and Diaz as the centre backs. We'll have Rodri as basically the DM. Gallagher more a bit of a box to box, but he can sit deeper if needed, depending on how attacking Sam wants to set us up. He might want to sub on Foden or something to play false nine when he wants to play a bit aggressive. And then we've got Salah, Son, and Bowen behind the striker, and the striker is Dennis. So we're happy with that one so far for the season.
Decent, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's good.
Yeah, based on performance, but I'm not sure if I was building my dream team that I'd really have Dennis in there. But fair play to him this season.
Yeah, exactly. That's not the question. It's who's done well this season so far. So.
Yeah. Right, so we've got a few more awards that we're going to do, but I thought it's a perfect place to put in a nice little FPL quiz so far. Perfectly timed. So kind of in the same fashion as Sam likes to do it when he has a quiz. So you both are going to take it in turns. If one of you gets one wrong, then you're out and the other person wins. So we're going to be talking about FPL points. We're going to be talking about midfielders. So I need you to name any Premier League midfielder who has scored 50 points or more in the FPL season so far. Just a disclaimer, these are done before the match currently on. So if there's...
Sorry, Will, you cut out halfway through them for me. Sorry.
Right.
Can you just repeat that, what we're doing?
Yeah, so it's basically going to take it in turns. Whoever gets it wrong will lose, so make sure you're careful with your answers. And it's going to be on the top. So we're going to be naming Premier League midfielders who have scored 50 points or more so far this FPL season. So I'll just send a disclaimer that this is before the game tonight. So if like a midfielder's gone crazy tonight and gone up from like 40 to 60 or something like that, they will not be included. So there's 46 players on this list.
Cool.
So quite a few. So when you get down there, it's a bit obscure, more than you think. So do you both understand? You fine with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
frantically writing.
Well, since you're frantically writing, I'm going to stop you there so you can go first, Sam. So fire away any Premier League midfielder with 50 points or more. So if they have got
to clarify, these are midfielders according to the FPL database.
According to FPL, yes, that is correct.
Okay, fine. All right, well, let's start with Salah.
Shock.
I wonder what place he is in the list. I'm not going to give you numbers of where they are in the list. Salah is obviously correct.
Yeah, just have to wait for you to say it. Let's go with Jota, seeing as he missed out from our team this season.
Yep, he is on the list. He's the prime example of probably because I think I won't be surprised if he gets changed to a forward next year on FPL.
Agree, yeah.
Back to you, Sam.
Right, let's go with Mane.
That is correct.
Still Liverpool so far. Son.
That is correct.
Let's stay with Anfield. Let's go Jordan Henderson.
That's a obscure one, but it's correct.
Wow, wasn't even sure if that'd be
Is
right.
it just going around the squad again? I had to double check. I remembered seeing his name, but I just wanted to double check.
I think he scored 4 or 5 goals this season, which is enough
enough.
when you play every game.
Yeah.
Mason Mount.
That's correct. I know you remember that one. He probably got all
Oh,
those
well,
points
indeed,
in that hat-trick week.
2 weeks, I remember he did well when I had him, brought him in.
Okay, let's go for Phil Foden.
Where is he? There he is. Yes, he's on the list.
Conor Gallagher.
That is correct.
Raheem Sterling.
Seen him somewhere. There he is. Next to Mr. Foden on the list.
Let's stay with Man City. Bernardo Silva.
Yes, third highest scoring midfielder.
Let's go with Mahrez.
Mahrez, yeah, there was a nice little City treble in the middle of this list. Mahrez, Sterling, and Foden. That is correct.
Let's make it a quadruple and go Gundogan.
Gundogan. He's on the list. Couldn't remember writing his name then. I had to think about it, but he's there.
Okay, let's go for Jorginho.
Jorginho is on the list, of course.
Jared Bowen.
That is correct. I wondered why it was taking so long to get to him when we talked about him for like half an hour.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Let's go for Kovacic.
Kovacic, I feel like he was a bit famous earlier on the pods. I'm just trying to find where he is. Yeah, he fell a bit further down the list now, but he's still well over 50.
Emil Smith-Rowe.
Smith-Rowe is there, just missing out on a top 10.
Saka.
An Arsenal player that did make it into the top 10.
That's a win, at least. Rafinha.
Rafinha's correct.
Okay. Damari Gray.
Fan favourite. He's in the list.
James Maddison.
He's correct.
Rafinha.
So I'm probably going to give you a few chances because we've already said Rafinha. I think Charlie said him a few.
Oh, have we?
cases back.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
Yeah. So I'll give you
Okay.
I'll give you two. I'll give you two. Like I feel like that isn't like
Two repeats. Oh, that's
yeah.
that's,
So
okay.
that's one strike
Well
for Sam.
done. Okay, let's go for. Oh, really? That's thrown me. That has. All right, let's go for.
I'm in his head now.
Let's go for Ward-Prowse.
That is correct.
Martin Odegaard.
That is correct.
Wolf Zaha.
Is correct. I was going to say you're not doing too bad in terms of the order you guys are doing it in, and then Sam said Zaha and he wasn't in order at all.
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense because the obvious ones are going to be the ones at the top, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, at the minute, of the first 18 names, you've got 17. You're missing one in the middle.
Bruno Fernandez.
Yeah, and you carried on the order. Bruno is there.
Andros Townsend.
I've seen him. There he is.
KDB.
One of various Man City players on the list is there.
Okay. Buemo.
Buemo is down near the bottom of the list.
Really? That's concerning.
this might be a bit left field, but I'm pretty sure he's done enough to get across 50. Townsend.
That's your repeat.
Strike one!
Oh,
Short
you already
strike
said
one.
him. Oh.
Sam said him probably about
I'm
2
in his
games
head.
ago.
I'm in his head.
About 2 games
You said
ago.
Gray, I couldn't remember Townsend.
Yeah, it was quite recent Townsend as well.
Yeah.
Oh, she's getting tired now.
So that means I go again, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's stick with Everton. Doucouré.
That is correct.
Okay, right. Let's go. I'm just going team by team now, trying to work out if there's anyone. Let's go for. This is going to be really close. I think I should probably save that one for when we need to gamble a bit later. Let's go for Rodri.
Yes, another City player on the list. I think he's scored 2 or 3 goals, and I think he's played majority of minutes.
Fair enough. This might be a bit of a gamble, but I'm hoping he's done enough recently to make it. I'm going to go with Martinelli.
I knew where he was going when he said that. Don't worry, he's still got more than Bueno.
Really? Martinelli's got more than Bueno?
Yeah. That's
done it in about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Got a few more. Let's go Trossard.
That's correct.
Lucas Moura.
That's correct. I'll let you both have one more go each, and then I'll tell you how many are left.
Okay.
Mason Greenwood.
Still above on Bueno, yes. I'm not actually sure how much was between them.
I'm pretty sure he's got a few goals, which should be enough. John McGinn.
Yeah, miles above him, Bueno.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right, so we've got, let me count them, and we've got 1 there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You've got 12 left.
Jesus, I've got.
Let's give you a hint that you've not got the bottom 5.
That's going to be the most difficult. Isn't it?
and Bueno is the lowest player you've got so far in terms of points.
I've got 3 that I'm pretty sure, 2 guesses. So we're not going to get 6, I don't think. Well, we'll see what happens.
Wow.
I'll go for a bit of a live read here, Will. When we were talking about Man City midfielders, when we said Rodri, you said another Man City midfielder, and I feel like if it was the last Man City midfielder, you'd have said, and that's all the Man City midfielders. So I'm going to take an educated guess at Jack Grealish.
Just his second bottom on the list. I'm pretty sure he had 50 or 51, so it was that close. I'm not going to make a comment about if that's the last Man City midfielder or not after that. You can think of
Are there any more Man City midfielders left? Is that all of them? Got to start be careful with your words now, Will.
No, Palmer could be in there.
I'm going to go with Ismail Assar.
Is correct. I'll give you a hint.
The
2 guesses you both gave were in the bottom 5.
That Sarr was one of my gambles. So
he's scored enough that he must.
Gonna have to go for a safe one now. I think. Let's go for Højbjerg.
That's correct. Did very, very well in Europe, fancy as well, I remember.
I'm pretty confident that in West Ham's pomp, Fornals got quite a few goals. So I'm going to go Fornals.
That is correct. Probably midway through the list, quite comfortably in there. So we're down.
Sorry, go on.
We're down to 8 names, so we could have 4 goes each.
Okay, well, I have one more West Ham on the list, and that's Souček.
That's correct.
So, and I know this from looking before when I was looking at Mbeumo. The other player who I'm going to have to gamble at his name because I can't exactly remember it, but the other one at Brentford, who tends to get points when Mbeumo doesn't, which I think his name is Canos or something.
Can we go with that? No, I'll give you some leeway on the spelling.
If that's in there, then that's fine.
Yeah,
If Canos, yeah.
No, I was only trying to play with him. We wanted to go
Doing
with
for
it.
pronunciation. Yeah.
I was only trying to play with him to make him get it in his head a bit. But yeah,
I can't.
Canos is on the list. Yeah, he's above on
Okay.
Mbeumo.
Is that his name? Is Canos?
It is Canos. Yeah.
I just seem to remember his name coming up on the notification app when I'm waiting for something, hoping for Mbeumo.
Yeah, he always seems to be involved somehow. But yeah, he's on the list. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
We're down to 6.
And we're down to gambles.
Slim pickings.
So to give you a hint at this stage, you both had the same amount of guesses. You've still got not got number 10 in this list, and
Number
it's
10.
and it's and you've both kind of been shirting around in the regions. I'm not going to give you any more than that. Like you'll
know what you mean by that.
Yeah, but I mean, like as soon as I say the name, you're just like, why did I not say that? But it won't be at the forefront of your mind, I don't think. Or two
Just
of
trying
them.
to go through the teams. In my head.
Okay, I think I'm picking up on what you were trying to say there, Will. So that
Okay.
could be helpful. Or I've misread it and I'm about to give you the wrong answer.
There's also some
So
other people on this list that we have discussed on this podcast. But remember, both of you only got one strike left, so you can't get duplication as well.
yeah. I don't think we've said a Wolves player yet. I don't think we've said a Norwich player yet. I don't think we've said, but probably for good reason.
I was going to say. Pukki's not a midfielder.
Have any of them even got?
I couldn't even tell you more than 2 Norwich midfielders in their team. That's how.
I think I'm going to think of like Gilmore, and then he's never played half the games. I can confirm to you that there's one Norwich player that has got over 50 points in any position.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not going to confirm what position it is.
I assume Pukki probably.
You can take that assumption as much as you like.
I feel like there's probably, I don't know, man. This is. I've got 2 gambles here. I think one of them's punting. The other one's a bit more of an educated guess. Let's go for the educated guess first. Let's go for Moutinho.
Just in there. Literally 51 points he had. If he didn't score the other day, he wouldn't have been in there.
Well, that's what I thought tipped it over the edge, the goal the other day.
So he is in there. So we're down to 5 names now.
I'm mudded now, man.
I'm going to have a stab at number 10, the person you're talking about, 10 on the list. I think we've not said him because he hasn't done as well as the season before, but I still remember him picking up some points. Said Benrahma.
That is correct. Yeah, he is number 10 in the list. I don't think he did very well last season either, did he? But
he had an unbelievable start to the season, didn't he?
Yeah, that was Lingard, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's what I meant.
Yeah, the first 3 game weeks, I think he got a goal and assist every game.
That is poor. That is so poor. Now we've got 4 West Ham players and not Benrahma.
Yeah, literally, because that's what I was trying to say, skirting round it. You literally said, I've got one more West Ham player. I'm like, well, you've not got the one that's got more points. You got Souček, but you didn't get him.
Oh, wow.
So we're down to 4 names.
I mean, we're clutching at straws now.
I'm disappointed you've not got one of them. I'm saying that to you both.
Doesn't really help.
Do you want me to, are you both happy for me to give you, so there's 46, I'll give you the placings of the final 4 you're both fine with that.
Just to clarify, if we get it wrong now, do we lose, or do we want more strike?
You lose. Your strike is duplication. So I get the 2 duplication strikes. So like,
aren't we level though at the moment? So technically,
oh my goodness,
Sam gets it wrong and then I get one.
No, we're not doing it like that. Literally, if you get it wrong, you're out.
Okay.
That's quite the explanation.
Right. I don't know. I can't remember if Charlie said this, but I don't think he has. And if he has to be in,
probably have.
Well, I know he has. He made one of Charlie's Will's team of the season candidates. We said Tielemans.
We've not said Tielemans. That's why I said I was disappointed.
No
one said Tielemans, and he's 21.
Shows you how...
It's like looking at the notepad here. Will Tielemans ? By Wilbur's team of the season.
Yeah.
He was 21. He's the only one who you'd miss from the first half of the list. But now it's slim pickings now.
How many have we got left?
We've got 3 left.
God.
And I will tell you that these players sit... So it's a list of 46. These players sit at 36, 42 and 46. So
wow.
Slim pickings. You've not got the lowest player. And then 2 kind of very low ones. If you get one of them, I'll be amazed.
The thing is, as well, at this stage, so 50 points is... We're up to game week, 21?
We're currently in 21.
Yeah, so that's 42 points if you assume they play every game for 60 minutes already. So they only really need to do one thing of any note to potentially get close to 50. I've got 2 names in my head. Both are very much guesses. Long shots. I am gonna go for based on the amount of goals the front lot of them have scored. I'm going to go with Declan Rice in the hope that he's got picked up some assists somewhere in all of that.
Is that what you're going with?
Declan Rice.
That's correct. He was number 36. Wow. He was the highest one that he had left.
Good.
But
I have not got a clue now.
I think you were using the good logic because I can imagine Rice has played a lot of the minutes as well.
Yeah.
I think it's probably been suspended for 1 game and that's about it. He's quite comfortably in the top 50. And you mentioned he's got 4 assists.
Yeah, it makes sense with the number of goals they've scored up front.
Just literally pass it and then someone hits it from the edge of the box.
Yep.
So we have 2 names left on the list. They are 42nd and 46th. Fair play.
All right.
I think one is
so there's... Yeah, well, I think there is one that... Well, I don't even know. They've been so bad this season. I don't even know how he could get more than 50 points. I can't think he scored at all, but purely because he played like every game last season for them. The educated guess inside me wants to say someone, and the other guess is, well, I don't know, it's just going to be a number of players who I can remember scoring once or doing something of some note on one occasion and just hope they've had some minutes tick over. I'm going to go for the educated gamble based on, I'm 99% sure. I'm very pleased you just said that was just said about 21 games gets 2 points if they played 60 minutes all season. That's 42 points. I think that might have led me to have a guess at this player because I think he played every single game last season for his club. And admittedly, I've watched hardly any of this team this season, so this might be horribly wrong.
I'm going to say...
But I'm going to guess.
There are a lot of players that must have played every game.
I think we've put you on the garden path there, just putting that in your head. But we'll see what you say.
Maybe you have. I don't know. I don't want to say now.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, man.
Just do it. Take it. Take the shot.
I can't say who I might say because if I don't say it, well, if
You
I don't
gotta
say
say
it,
it
if I'm
now.
wrong, I'm out anyway, aren't I?
Yeah, you've got to get this right, otherwise you're out.
Man, this is grim. All right, well, I've got three guesses on the paper. The educated guess I want to take is Dallas because he played every minute last season. I can remember a time where, well, not too long ago when Havertz was leading the line for Chelsea because Lukaku and Werner were out. And I'm pretty sure, although he didn't do too well, he did score at least one. And the other player who's played every minute but played, well, I doubt he's got 50 points is Fred.
You don't slag off Fred, come on.
Oh man, my head is saying Dallas, but man, I don't think it's Fred. It's between Dallas and Havertz. It might be the other two. I don't know. Although, based on Will saying, I don't think you'd have got. He think might have. I'm reading way too much into this. Whatever. Dallas. Stuart Dallas. Final answer.
Okay. So Fred, 40. Oh, well, I'm not going to say that. I'm not just ruining Fred for you there.
Well, it's not Fred.
Yeah, it's not Fred.
I can just say now I was not going to guess Fred.
Yeah, it's not Fred. I just thought that. I was thinking it was the last one. Dallas has got 53 points. So he's in there.
Oh my god, Seeds.
Wow.
Oh, send it. Oh my life. I would never have guessed Dallas if it wasn't for someone. One of you two just said.
What is he?
One of you two just said about 2 points a game will get you 42 points.
That could be anyone. That could be loads of
I
them.
know, but he's only got to get 50. He's got to get 8 points over the course of 21 games.
I'm going to say, in last game week, he scored and got 10 points. Well, actually, in the current game week.
That's unreal. That is. I mean, that's straight out the sock drawer. That is.
Yeah, if he didn't score that, then he wouldn't have been on 50.
That might be
similar to Moutinho.
That tops a couple of weeks ago
when
for the 3-pointer on the opening question. I was just like, Vardy. That's mate, Stuart Dallas shirt incoming.
Right, over to you, Charlie. One name left.
Out of interest,
if I manage to pull this back, I'm going to send Charlie a Dallas shirt.
Is this last name last in the list or the other, whatever the other position was?
This player is last on the list with exactly 50 points.
Ugh.
I shouldn't have ruined Fred. You might want to use Fred as your guess, but I ruined that one.
I was not going to go for it.
Just to confirm, Fred had 46 points. In fairness, Dallas was the one I didn't think anyone was going to get.
I mean, I wasn't going to guess it until someone said.
Charlie got himself in one there.
So, Kai Havertz was a name that I was considering already. That was one of my potential picks. So the fact Sam mentioned him does make me think about him as well. Lanzini's done quite well of late, or at least I feel like he scored a brace a while ago, but obviously hasn't played enough maybe to quite get to 50. I feel like he's close. And who else were we talking about? Oh, this is tough. I can't really think of many players that will have done it completely on goals or assists. Oh yeah, the problem with this range is it's either players that have done nothing and got like one goal, or it's players that have done well but have been like injured for majority of the season. Yeah, I don't really know. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna stick with my West Ham guys and go Lanzini because I don't really have much of a better shout.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to list a lot of players that have got 49 points because there's a lot of them, and you've mentioned some names that are on 49 points. So to start with, Kai Havertz, 49 points. So anyone who went for Kai Havertz would have lost. Other examples of 49 points, I didn't mention some of these. Buendia, Harvey Barnes, Dan James, Redmond. And yeah, and McAllister also on 48. We'll give him a shout out. So basically, there's a player on 50 and there's a player on 49. Your guess, Charlie, has got 50 or 49. So you've either got it on with 50 or you're 1 point short. Do you think you've made it?
This is agony.
He's got better at this like sick twisted delay.
So Lanzini, thanks to his recent performances, has managed to get himself 49 points.
No.
Get in there!
1
The
point
comeback
off.
is on.
So does anyone like to hazard a guess? I'm sure you haven't got guesses for who's got 50.
I mean, we've
I
already
have
talked about
no idea.
So it's
I have absolutely no idea.
It's completely against the logic of what we've been going for on the other guesses, like with Dallas. So this player has got 6 goals, no assists,
6 goals.
and
So they haven't played much.
he hasn't played that many games. I feel like it's one. It'll kind of click when I say it, but I don't think it'll ever be top of your list. A winger that plays for Burnley.
Wow.
Oh,
Burnley.
Cornet.
Cornet, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would never
have
think
got
about
that. Never have got Cornet.
He's got the 6 goals, and then in most of those games he's got the bonus as well, because obviously Burnley don't score that many
What
goals.
about
that makes sense.
What about Neves for Wolves? How many has he got?
44. He's below Fred.
So I did think about that logic about someone that might have done well but got injured or not played,
But
but
they're
I couldn't
difficult
really
to
think of anyone that's
they're really difficult to think of, those players. That's why, because you don't see them in every game. It puts you off. Like if we'd done this like 5 weeks ago when like Cornet was nearly in like a hot streak, then it's more obvious, isn't it? But it's kind of like the Ben Rama one. It didn't straight come to mind because it was so early in the season. Yeah, fair play. You got a loyal to last name, and I'm gonna get
That's unreal.
There's gonna be a Dallas shirt somewhere.
If we end up winning this, of course, across the season, the Dallas shirt is in the post. That's scenes.
I need to
That is scenes.
go back and
I think
check.
it's like. I think that's like. It might be 7-5 to Charlie now. It's either
I'm not
7-5
that
or
far ahead.
6-5.
No, and I'm pretty sure it's back level again now.
I think you'd won the last two. You'd won the last two.
But the last
So
one,
maybe 7-6
sure.
then or something.
the last one was me and Charlie, though, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, okay.
In my mind, Charlie's 1 up, so this makes it level.
Okay.
But I'm gonna check back because there's never been more than 1 between you, so I can't imagine it is. I'll double check on the last pod,
okay.
but I think
Good point. I
skewed it.
forgot.
Yeah. But yeah, fair play. You did very well, both of you.
Yeah, well played. Well played.
Yeah.
That was
GG.
good, that one.
Oh, Stuart Dallas, the boy.
He's come back. I wondered if you'd click onto him being a midfielder as well, because obviously he changed position.
Honestly, I would have got nowhere near that until you said
Yeah.
about all you need is 2 points per game to get to 42. My brain was like, all right, who played loads of games last season?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Dallas has like over the last 2 seasons the highest like number of minutes combined.
Yeah, it's crazy as well. Literally, if he didn't score in the last game as well, it wouldn't have been in there. But does such a need that one contribution?
Wow, yeah.
It's crazy. God, I'm just checking the scores as well. Southampton 4-1 up against Brentford. That's a bit of a
Wow. Southampton 4-1 up.
yeah. And Buemo with the assist for Brentford. We got to it.
Of course.
That would have got him further up the list. But yeah, there's a very spread of FPL points there as well. Bednarek, Brozier, Che Adams, an own goal, Ward-Prowse, everyone involved there for Southampton. But yeah, that's crazy scoreline there. But so we're gonna link. Say again, Sam.
The Championship, I know it's a bit outside of FPL. Fulham are 6-0 up at Reading.
There's goals everywhere tonight, but now.
Reading is so bad, man. Pain for the Reading.
There's your bit of championship part of the pod there.
Yeah, never back Reading.
Especially against Fulham. I don't think many people would. So moving back, just summarising a few bits from our team of the season kind of discussion before. So we had a point here about player of the season, but I don't think there's any doubt about who player of the season is. So I don't think we need to touch further than Salah, do we? I don't think anyone's got anything to add around Salah.
No, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, you want to say?
Yeah, Salah's the man.
So probably a bit more interesting one then. Who would be your manager of the season, Sam?
Yeah, so I won't go listing through any sort of alternatives in case you guys want to cover those. I've gone for David Moyes at West Ham, just because I think West Ham have surpassed everyone's expectations so significantly, probably more than any other team, that I think he deserves it. I think, and to be through in Europe, to be fighting on multiple fronts. I think just he's done an unbelievable job so far this season. West Ham being in the top four for so long, been playing really good, attractive football, defending well with limited resources in terms of squad numbers available. I think you've got to take your hat off to him and say he's done a brilliant job. So for me, David Moyes is my manager of the season so far.
How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, I had a few different names. Moyes was probably the first one that I wrote down or thought of because of how well West Ham have continued to do. But obviously Sam's covered him there. So I think just a couple of my other names. I wanted to mention Vieira because his previous managerial positions have not really gone very well. He seems to have just completely turned things around at Palace. I mentioned before about how they've kind of changed their style. They have the most pressures in the league, so they press even like statistically they actually press more than Leeds. The way you think about how Leeds play, Palace do it even more than them, which is a complete reversal of how they would have been under Hodgson. So to kind of impact that kind of change in an off season and during the season as well is pretty crazy. So to get them sort of they're not doing massively well, but they're also nowhere near relegation at this point. So I think that has impressed me. Obviously, you have to give some talk to Guardiola. Of course, there is the element of they've got all the money they want at their disposal and the squad depth and all that sort of stuff. But to manage all of that, improve all those players as well, which he does just seem to consistently do, and also I think, and it's been talked about a lot, but just the way they've been able to play without an out-and-out striker, I think has been impressive. The way they've dealt with not having like Aguero or whoever, or moving Jesus out wide and all these things. I think I am always going to have a soft spot for Guardiola because I think he's probably in terms of tactically, I think is my favourite manager. So I think I've always got to shout him out there. But I'm happy to go with Sam's pick of David Moyes. Really, I think he's been, in terms of compared to where you maybe on paper would have teams, I think West Ham have done the best. So I think David Moyes would be my first choice as well.
Keep the clean sweep then, haven't I? Because Moyes were my top pick. I don't think it's particularly surprising where West Ham. I think it's just them being consistent and Moyes getting that consistency to kind of establish them as a top 6-7 kind of club. Like, we'll come on to the next section as well, but I don't think it's a surprise West Ham are where they are. They were up there for a lot of the time last season and then fell off the last few weeks. So I think it's just that consistency, and it's given them a lot of stability there at West Ham, and kind of rebuilt Moyes' reputation again after previous issues with United, etc. So yeah, he's definitely for me. I just wanted to mention, not on the result tonight, but I was going to mention Frank at Brentford as well, because they've not looked too bad coming up from the Championship, the first time ever in the Premier League, and especially at home, I like the way they're set up. So I think, as you've seen with Norwich and Watford really struggling, Brentford are just a bit above them, and I think they're Frank is quite charismatic and quite a good talker as well after the game, so just a bit of a shout out for him. But Moyes is clear for me as manager of the season, so I think we're all in agreement on that one. So as I kind of touched on, that kind of links into maybe some of the surprise teams of the season so far. So I kind of took this in two ways. So I kind of had a surprise team in a good way, and then a surprise team in a bad way, like under and overachieving kind of thing. So I'll start on this one. So you've touched on the manager, Charlie. So I had Palace as surprise team because I don't know if any of us, I think we put Palace quite low down in our table predictions. I can't remember if someone put them in the relegation zone on the predictions.
We all had them either 18th or 17th or 18th.
Yeah, all down there. And I think, well, from my point of view, I put them down there because it's the turnover of players. They lost a lot of experienced players and have brought in a lot of younger talent. They spent quite a bit of money on some of those talents as well. And it's kind of if Vieira could glue them together and make them into the team. And as you've touched on, they've changed like the whole dynamic pressing, for example, and they've surprised me in how effective it's been so quickly and still be an established Premier League side. So I've been impressed by them. But then slightly on the flip side, I had two teams that I was kind of surprised the other way. So I had Everton, which I think a lot of people were talking about how Rafa would make them great defensively and stabilise them. I know they've had a lot of injuries. That's probably not helping at the same time, but they're definitely not in a position they would want to be in at the minute, Everton. And you can see the fans kind of going against Rafa as you'd kind of expect. That was a strange appointment in the first place. And then also on the underachieving side, I had Leeds as well, because we saw them do very well last season coming up, and I thought, especially with fans being back, I think we saw in the last home game, the home fans had a really big impact on them, and they really need that to perk them up at the minute. Again, they've had similar injury issues, but you was hoping they wouldn't get kind of this, as everyone touches on, the second season syndrome, but currently they're not doing up to the same levels as last season, and they're being found out in certain ways. So I have both of them as kind of underachievers as well. I don't know how you guys took that question, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, word for word, what you said, I did exactly the same. Picked a surprise team based on, pleasantly surprised, if you like, and that was Palace for reasons you discussed. And Agent Rafa doing a cracking job at the Toffees. For the surprise going the other way. It's quite incredible to think that after 6 games of the season, Sky was standing with Everton fans asking them if they thought this could be their year, as them and West Ham raced off at the top of the league. It's unbelievable fall from grace for Everton. It is honestly incredible, and they are, in my opinion, at the moment, they are the worst team in the league. Let's see how they get on in trying to sort that out. They are playing really, really, really poor football.
Yeah, I feel like Everton always have that the first few weeks of the season where they think they're going to challenge Liverpool, and it's like, yeah, okay, move on. But what's your thinking on that one then as well, Charlie?
Yeah, so obviously very similar thoughts. So just to kind of add some extra ones in there. I talked before about Wolves as well. I think not necessarily attacking wise, but defensively have massively impressed me. In terms of particularly in the games against the big sides, they've been so good defensively and not conceded many. And yeah, obviously there's the West Ham shout that we mentioned before, who I know at this point it's not necessarily a surprise, but I think if you just think about the team on paper, you wouldn't necessarily say they should be doing as well as they are, and particularly with the lack of consistency with all the teams around and below, it's really good. They're really seizing that opportunity to take that spot. So they're firmly in the good side of it. And of course, Palace, like you guys said. On the bad side, I guess a couple of extra names to throw in. I would put Leeds there. There is an extent to which that's been massively caused by injuries and not necessarily something that they can do anything about. But that being said, as well, as a general point, it kind of shows some of the issues with their team and in squad depth, and particularly with a very specific system, not having the right players to come in and be able to slot in when other players are out. And I definitely think if it wasn't for Rafinha, they would be within the relegation zone. I don't think they're the kind of team that would get rid of their manager, because obviously they've stuck by him and he's done very well in bringing them up and keeping them up and doing well. So once the players start coming back, I'm sure they'll be fine. But to this point, they've kind of underwhelmed. And I guess I would also just have an extra shout for Leicester. I think on paper they should be a team that's effectively doing what West Ham are doing. There's just not quite that same momentum. And again, they've had a few injuries here and there. And like, for example, Fofana right at the beginning of the season in that, I think it was a pre-season friendly where he got the leg break. And but those are the kind of things you do have to kind of just adapt with. And they've not really seemed to. It feels like they were the team of anyone, probably West Ham most of all, but Leicester were the kind of team that were trying to push on. They were in and out of the top four, and then I think 2 seasons in a row just dropped out at the end, and that was the kind of position they were in. And at this point, it now looks like they're going to be in a fight for sort of lower Europa places. So I think, yeah, again, to this point so far, they've kind of underwhelmed really, given the talent in the squad and bringing in players that have done all right. So like Daka in the Europa League has done pretty well and things like that. So yeah, I think I would just have an extra shout there for Leicester. But yeah, of course, Everton in the position they're in, massively a bad surprise, I'd say.
It's a good shout at Leicester as well. I know when Ollie got sacked at United, there's people talking about Rodgers, and I'm like, well, he's not doing particularly well. I don't think he's not ever really done well with Leicester in the league. Obviously, they won the FA Cup. But I would not be convinced of him as a manager for United, and obviously previous links as well come into that slightly. So if we move on to surprise players as well, then we might have touched on some of these a bit earlier on. From your point of view, Sam, surprise players for you so far this season? If he's there.
Sorry, my bad. We could have either gone for either the surprise player or the best transfer. I guess it sort of flipped around, whichever way you fancy it for me.
But we talk about various kind
yeah, so surprise player, I've gone for Emmanuel Dennis just because of the sheer factor of had really no idea who he was, to be perfectly honest, before other than seeing his FIFA card in game on some SBCs and stuff. But yeah, no, he's been unbelievable, quite frankly. To think, we're talking about putting a Watford player in the team of the season so far, 8 goals, 6 assists in a team that's struggling at the bottom of the league. He's been brilliant. So he is my surprise player due to the just shock of it kind of came out of nowhere and has done really well. So fair play to him. That's who I've gone for.
Yeah, I feel like you just mentioned the surprise player and best transfer can kind of link together, because I think they signed Dennis as well, didn't they? So technically, you could say he was a best transfer at the same time. Is there any other names you kind of had for like your best transfer, or any other surprise players you had as well, Sam? Just while we're on the topic.
Well, yeah, I mean, so surprise player was Dennis, and then best transfer I went for Sarr for Wolves. I mean, Charlie spoke really well about all the things he's done well, but averaging 2.8 saves a game, a massive, I think over 75% save ratio is crazy. 8 clean sheets. I think if you look at one signing that's had the biggest impact on one specific position, it's kind of easy to say as a goalkeeper, because you're only ever really responsible for your own goal. But yeah, he's been really, really good for Wolves. So I think it could have had either one of those two really. Sarr also wasn't too familiar with what he'd been up to, but yeah, no, he's been brilliant for Wolves. So he was the player I had for best transfer.
I had both of them on my list as well as considerations. How about your thoughts on that one, Charlie?
Well, again, I've got very similar thoughts. So, surprise player, my first name was Dennis for the exact same reasons Sam said. So, I guess just to chuck in another player, again, someone that's also made our team of the season so far list, Conor Gallagher as well. Yeah, as part of that sort of Palace complete change in system, Gallagher is absolutely perfect for that in how good he is at both ends of the pitch. So I think that's worked out really well, and it wouldn't be a surprise if Gallagher's in and around the Chelsea squad at some point next season, potentially. In terms of best transfer, again, similar names. So obviously, yeah, Dennis the same, obviously, because he did transfer this season, and again, the same with Jose Sarr. Who actually also I was just double checking in terms of the value as well, because Jose Sarr, they brought him in for, I think it was around 7 or 8 million. Yeah. And so obviously in terms of just pure transfer value, that's really good, as well as you add on top of the fact that they sold Patricio for, I think, a little bit more than that as well. So in terms of they've not really had to pay anything and got someone that's making the most saves or the highest save percentage in the league. So I guess I would also just add an extra shout for Ramsdale, just from an Arsenal point of view. He has been, and it's not like. So the reason I wouldn't necessarily put him forward as the best transfer is because in terms of, like Sam was mentioning about sort of contribution specifically to the team and how he's improved the team. He has played really well, but it's not like Leno, who was in place before him, was necessarily doing badly. So in terms of a wholesale improvement, it's not like he's massively uplifted the side, but he has been directly responsible for quite a few of our wins, and even in our losses, it could have been much worse if it wasn't for him. So I would want to just throw him in, particularly given my own and everyone's really comments about Ramsdale at the beginning of the season about how much money we were spending on him, and the 2 sort of relegations he's had in successive years and things like that. It's just been really good to see him kind of block all that out and really impress in goal. It's been a long time since we've had an actual decent defence, so it's had to at least get a mention in there.
So I actually had another Arsenal player on my list, which you'll be surprised to hear. I had Tomiyasu, is it your right back, who always looked.
Yeah.
Well, I put him in my surprise category because I think I wasn't expecting him to do very well coming from the Serie A, and he's looked a bit better than I thought he would. So it was low down on my surprise players, but I thought I'd mention him while we were saying about your defence. So I had surprise players again, Dennis, that we've said, and then I had, coming from kind of a different angle, a player that I've seen a lot of improvement from, who was actually in our team of the season so far with Bowen, because I feel like he's taking his game to the next level. So obviously we knew he had qualities before, but I feel like he's doing it on a more consistent basis. So it's kind of a surprise based on what we've seen from him previously. And then I thought I'd put Tomiyasu there as a third one, because he's not looked too bad since he's come in, and Arsenal's defence has looked decent. I had quite a few best transfers as well, so I wrote Ramsdale and Sarr right at the bottom of the list, as you both touched on. I had Cornet, who we've touched on previously, who I feel is like levels above Burnley's level, really. And whenever he plays, he's got goals, as we've seen from the quiz just before. He looks a good asset for Burnley, and I feel like they could get a decent amount from him if he was sold, even if he got relegated. In terms of value as well, Demarai Gray, absolute bargain, like 1.5 million or something, was absolutely ridiculous value. And a lot of these best transfers are kind of from the season so far, who I've liked the look of. I also had Cucurella down there for Brighton as well, who I've quite liked as their left wing back. He's one to watch out for the future, I think. And right at the bottom of the list, I did put Ronaldo, because the feel-good factor when he signed was great. I'm not saying the feel-good factor's still there, but as a United fan, getting Ronaldo back, and I think for the Premier League in general at the time, it was just a great transfer for the Premier League. So I had to mention him at some point. So I think that's covered all the different categories we had. Was there anything we wanted to kind of add from a kind of should I say season review so far? Or should we just move on to the last section?
No, I think we've covered it, really.
Yeah, no, all good.
Lots of Dennis chat. I think we've had enough Dennis chat for 1 week.
I mean, you say that, but we're about to talk about upcoming
No.
weeks, and Dennis may feature.
Oh no, here we go. I feel like we'll start with you, Charlie, because I feel like Sam's got a lot of flags, so we might be crying a bit for his team. So if we move on to how we're looking going forward in FPL, so obviously there's a lot of madness going on at the minute, and I wouldn't recommend you making early transfers. But basically, how is your team looking for the game week ahead, Charlie? Is there any kind of moves you've kind of got in your head? Obviously, I don't need you to commit to something now. And we've also got, it's a double game week in a way, because quite a lot of teams have got a double game week. It's a lot better. Well, in terms of fixtures, there's a lot more fixtures than the current week we're in. But I'd argue some of the double game weeks aren't fantastic. So we'll touch on that as well. How is you looking in terms of having double game week players to play as well?
Yeah. So it's kind of, I don't even know what to say. It's difficult. Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's so difficult at the moment trying to put together any real plan, because things just change so quickly, and like you say, even up to the seconds before the deadline, things can change. So it's never been more important to wait until you can get as much information as possible before making your transfers. At the moment in my team, assuming some of those that are yellow flags, so I've got, for example, Ronaldo and Trent, which are both yellow flags, but as far as I'm aware, they should be fine to start eventually.
Trent's going to be fine. Trent will be there.
Pretty Ronaldo sure should be. I don't.
Yeah.
Not depending on how serious it is.
Yeah.
I think there's a slight doubt if he plays 180 minutes in the game week. That's the only thing I'd say.
It might be minutes managed, but then kind of expect that with Ronaldo anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment, I've got 1, 2, 3 double game weekers in my team. Quite annoying about the Son injury, because I kind of transferred him in with a view to the upcoming double game week, not necessarily just with the fixtures being massively amazing, but just he's someone that could kind of get something in most games. And also he was sort of a placeholder for me for while Salah was away. So I've now kind of got to be forced into a move to get rid of him, but not being able to move back to Salah yet, which is a bit annoying because that was sort of my plan. As I mentioned, also Dennis has been back in training, so Dennis is probably high on my list of who I want to get in. And I've got Watkins sat there on my bench currently, with the fixture at home to United that is likely to make way for Dennis for a nice double game week for Watford. They're probably, of anyone, the fixtures probably are best for Watford, with an away at Newcastle and then away at Burnley. So Dennis firmly in my thinking, and then it's just kind of about what I do with Son, whether I move him to maybe one of the Leicester players potentially. Leicester away at Burnley and at home to Spurs for the double game week. But again, it's the problem I'm finding is that some of these fixtures aren't necessarily good long-term picks. So, for example, I mentioned they're taking Watkins out because he's at home against United, but then the following sort of 5, 6, 7 game weeks are actually quite good for Villa. So yeah, it's kind of, I'm caught in two minds about exactly how I want to play it, but I think at this point I'm kind of focusing a bit more short term because, like we've said, it's just things are so chop and change that it's really difficult to plan too long term anyway. And what might look like a good fixture run may end up being a couple of blanks in there because of COVID or whatever else. So I think you've just got to kind of play the week in front of you, to use a nice football cliche, and just go from there. I've still got the 2 free transfers. No, sorry, 2 free hits that they've given us. So the extra one and the original one as well. With an eye of using one of those in the FA Cup blank game week, which I think is usually around game week 30-ish, when it's the FA Cup quarterfinals. That gets played on the sort of normal Premier League weekend as opposed to its own standalone. So I'm expecting to use one of them there, and then the other one just at my disposal, either if I need it because of COVID or whatever, that kind of brings a lot of my players out of the squad, or just use it for a bit of fun in a double game week or something if I want to target one of those. So yeah, loosely, I don't mind the fixtures my players have got at the moment. It's just about how much I want to go into the double game weeks fixtures. Like you said, they're not all that good anyway. So I'm not overly keen of getting too far into them. And there's quite a few single game week teams that are actually quite good, like the Liverpool home fixture against Brentford, for example. And yeah, West Ham against Leeds as well. I'm tripled up on West Ham, and I don't plan on taking any of them out for this game week either.
As I said earlier, our teams are very similar. So I think the issues I have with my team are very similar to yours. I had kind of the back of my head until the current situation that I was going to attempt to bench boost this week, but the COVID madness and Son's injury have kind of extinguished that happening, I think, for me. Because, I've got exactly the same as you, Charlie. So Trent yellow flagged, Ronaldo yellow flagged, and then Son red flagged. But everyone outside of that, I'd expect to get 90 minutes at least. So I was very tempted because at the minute my bench is Guaita, Antonio, Matty Cash, and Johnson from West Ham. So I was very tempted just to get it out of the way. But I think the Son news and all the COVID stuff, I'm going to be a bit put off that. Especially because you're banking on all those players playing, and I can see at least one fixture getting postponed just to ruin that. So for me, I think ideally I would just bench Son in my team and just bring Antonio on because I've got that strength in my squad at the minute, and I could rely on 2 transfers the next week. But I'll see. I'm tempted by, like you've mentioned, a Leicester asset, but again, it's very short term, so I might try and bank that transfer while I've got the squad. I've got to use the benefits of the big squad, I think, especially in times like this. So shouldn't be too bad. And I think I've got 5 double game weekers currently, but one of them's Dallo, who I don't think will play both games anyway, so he's not really a double game weeker. So very similar to what you've got as well, Charlie. So I think we'll go over to the flag man himself with Sam. I hear there's a lot of flags going over there. Sam, do you want to talk us through your dilemmas going into the next week?
We got more flags than Glastonbury over here. It's a disaster. So it's going to be. The plan is set. If there's no more disastrous injuries, we're going for Mendy out, Reece James out, and Davis, the fodder striker from Villa, out. And in will come Kasper Schmeichel, Lamptey, and Dennis. And that will be for an 8-point hit.
Wow.
But we've got to make moves, man. We got to put some faith in some double game weekers to get some points going over here because the slide is impressive.
I've literally just looked at your team, and it's like there is so many flags, isn't there? Like
it's honestly it's crazy. I mean, even Dennis has a flag, so we're contemplating replacing a flag with a flag. That's how bad it is. But I think Dennis will be all right. I know Trent's going to be all right. Trent had COVID, but has tested negative on lateral flow today. So if he does again tomorrow, he'll play at the weekend. He might even be fit for. He might even be ready for the Arsenal game, but I doubt it. I doubt they'll play him against Arsenal. I think it'll probably be Nico Williams if he's fit, and if he's not fit, then it'll be Bradley. So yeah, I fully expect Alexander-Arnold to play at the weekend. Leicester double game week with Burnley and Spurs. I think Spurs will lose against Arsenal in the London derby, so they'll probably have their tails between their legs there. And then, I think probably one of the worst fixtures you could have if you're looking for a result is Leicester away. So probably not a fan of Spurs in that fixture. Having said that, good time to bring in Lucas Moura a couple of weeks ago because now Sonny's out, then Moura should get a run for a double game week for Spurs. So I'm putting all my eggs in a Lucas Moura basket. I've got Schmeichel or Moura, and one of them's going to have a good double game week. The other one's probably not. So let's put my hat in both baskets. So yeah, that's the plan. Schmeichel, Lamptey, Dennis in, which will give me a bit more squad depth actually, and will give me actually 14 usable players across the squad going forward. Because one thing I need to learn for next year is that over the course of December, I need to be building up in the couple of weeks beforehand to having at least 2 subs available who are probably going to play and not just like fodder on the bench.
Yeah.
Because it's just tough, man. It's tough as soon as you get one who's not playing, let alone 4. And I know we've got COVID outbreaks and everything going on, but I think probably I let myself down a little bit with the management before Christmas. So we're going into the Salon. We're going all guns blazing for the second half of the season. Big boy moves. My tip for this game week: who's going to have a big week? I think Antonio is going to have a big week for West Ham if he's fit. It's Norwich.
You imagine if he's out
If he's fit, yeah, probably.
We'll see. We'll
Probably.
get a good
Nah, it's
Go on.
yeah. So I'm not gonna hit make transfers until the absolute deadline, which needs to be reminded that it's 6:30 on Friday this week, not Saturday. So I'll be waiting till I leave the office and then hit bang on transfers and see how we end up. But I will say one thing, that I will be bringing in Felipe Coutinho in the next week. All right, so just bear that in mind. I will be bringing him in from next week.
I had rumours he's got COVID, so I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Well, as soon as he's available, as soon as Coutinho is available, he's coming in. Moura's gone, Coutinho's in.
Coutinho being managed by Gerrard. What more could a Liverpool fan want?
Oh dear.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get an indication from Antonio tomorrow night as well, because they've still got the game against Norwich to come up at the end of the game week, so we'll get a gauge. I feel like if you get an Antonio or a Bowen injury in that game, I think it's wildcard season for you, Sam. The amount of transfers.
No, don't be silly. Don't be silly. It's crazy though, isn't it? Really, because I mean, double game weeks aren't the worst weeks in the world to take points hits. No. Because if you are taking points hits to get a player who's got a double game week, the chances are that there's a decent chance that they'll recoup some of the points for you that you took on the hit.
Yeah.
But also, you then look at it if you're trying to gain on people and they're not taking points hits for double game weeks, then the gap extends further. So it's high risk strategy, but potentially high reward or damage limitation, as it were, in my case.
It's going to be
we'll see.
It's going to be an exciting week at Sambo Towers, whatever happens. So
yeah, someone's. I've got a feeling Jota is going to run riot this weekend, though. I will say that. I think he's going to run riot.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of discussed like the double game weeks not being fantastic, and we've kind of, with the transfers, we've kind of discussed teams we're going for, like a Leicester, a Watford, maybe even a Brighton defender, or Leicester goalkeeper in Sam's case. So that covered that quite well. And linking on to Jota being the star man, where's the armband going for you, Sam, currently? If you made those transfers, where would the armband be going?
A tough one, because obviously you've got double game weeks. I would really want to give the armband to Dennis, but I don't know if he's going to play both games.
Yeah.
I think the sensible thing to do is to give. I just don't like not giving the armband to someone who's got a double game week, because like if they score one, and then they just like play 60 minutes, like that's a chunk of point, big chunk of points.
It's the upside, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. But if obviously they don't score or they don't end up playing, then we'll see. So if Dennis is ruled available and fit, I think Dennis gets the armband. If he's any question of any sort over Dennis's availability, then we just take a 4-point hit, give the armband to Jota, and play a bit more sensible. In fact, that might just be the strategy anyway, to be honest. But
yeah, especially if you think Jota's going to go off on one, then it might just be the safer option and hope for the best.
Yeah, I do think Jota is going to go off on one, to be honest, because Liverpool are playing at home against Brentford, who've just conceded 4 against Southampton, which is quite incredible, really. I can't believe that. Liverpool just score lots at home, generally. I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet. But obviously, there's no Salah and no Mane.
Yeah.
Minamino's going to play, we know that for sure. Jota's going to play, we know that for sure, as long as they're not injured by that time or we've got COVID. And anybody fancying a differential pick for this weekend? If you fancy a long shot punt No, Firmino's probably just going to play, isn't he? But
Origi.
I was going to stick. No, Origi's injured.
Oh no.
But maybe Kane Gordon. I don't even know if he's in the database. I don't think he is.
Can't imagine.
That's a shame. He is. He's 4.5 mil. Kane Gordon might get the nod at some point this weekend.
I think you have to bring him in now.
Depends what happens in the cup game against Arsenal on Thursday.
Yeah,
it does depend what's going to happen. I'm going to that as well. I'm looking forward to that. Get stuck in.
No offense, but I hope you have a horrible time.
Well,
it's
interesting. It is interesting because if it was the second leg at Anfield, I just think the tie's done. Like Arsenal in big games at Anfield just bottle it every time. Have done for the last 10 years. But because when you get back, the second leg home advantage is so big. If you get the crowd behind you, and if it does end up going to penalties and you end up taking them in your home stadium, it makes a massive difference. So who knows? I think it's more of an open semi-final than some people might think.
Yep.
And Arsenal have got a massive advantage in that there's no Salah and no Mane available, even off the bench. So it's Arsenal's best chance to reach a final in a little while.
Look out for in the meantime as well. So we need to bear in that mind if there's any injuries or anything that come from there. Imagine if Jota got injured, literally, you don't have anyone to play it from. But yeah, hopefully.
Well, if Jota got injured, I don't even know what they'd do. You probably would see some kind of weird five at the back with Robertson and Trent playing as like proper wingers. And like Van Dijk, Matip, and Konate as centre backs or something like that. Like 3-5-2, if you like. That's not beyond the realms of possibility. But Liverpool are just stretched at the minute with injuries to a big extent, really. One to watch out for the second half of the season, just to finalise my Liverpool rant, is the return of Harvey Elliot from injury. He's only about 2 weeks away from coming back, priced at 5.3. Was a solid starter for Liverpool until he got injured. Definitely one to keep an eye on when he becomes available. I fully anticipate him getting back into the mix, particularly in the Premier League. He didn't really play too much in the Champions League, but when he becomes available again, it wouldn't surprise me if he starts getting games. So one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to say, I heard about that possible wing-back formation, and I was excited to see Trent as basically a right winger. That'll even make his FPL points even more exciting and explosive if it can be so. So just the same question over to you as well, Charlie. Where's your armband currently sitting?
Well, a lot of similar options. I think of like Sam said, really, of all the single game weekers, I think Jota makes the most sense, and rivals a lot of the double game weekers even as well. Particularly as Sam said, with the Brentford side that just conceded 4. But on the same logic, the other team, far superior team, but another team that will also play Brentford in this double game week is Man United. So my kind of instant or automatic pick at first when looking at my team ready for this coming week was giving the captaincy to Ronaldo. He may not be the Ronaldo of old, but he can certainly at least bang in a few tap-ins and penalties against really bad teams to stat pad, and this feels like an opportunity for him to boost a few of his numbers. So I think I'll be listening out for any updates in terms of injuries. I'm more confident that Dennis does play both games. So again, he comes into consideration. He was in training. He pictured in training. So I'm pretty confident that he plays both because he's just been so vital to them. I think they need him to play both, even if it might just be 60 and 60 minutes in both games. And then, like we said before as well, I feel like West Ham have a good chance against Leeds to rack up a pretty high score, of which both Bowen and Antonio should be a part. So again, as other single game week options, they seem a pretty good one, but I think Jota still edges it over them. So it's on Ronaldo for now, as long as he gets confirmed fit and seems likely to play both games, then I think I'll keep it on him. because he just has that extra game as well. Whilst he might not be able to do as much as Jota can in that one game against Brentford, he just has that extra game against Villa as well, that can just help add a bit of extra potential. So yeah, Ronaldo for me at the moment.
Very similar. I think if those two fixtures were away at home, should I say, rather than away, then there'll be no doubt about putting Ronaldo, because I think he'll do better at home. Brentford haven't been too bad at home, so there could be a few goals in there for United, but I don't expect us to like run away with it, especially with the form we're in. So that's the main thing putting me off Ronaldo. So I've currently got it on Ronaldo, and I've got Josh King rather than Dennis, so the bias is currently on Josh King. So it's very similar to what you've just said, Charlie. Between those two, I don't think, like we've mentioned Jota, I don't think outside of those three there'd be anyone I'll be putting it on this week. So yeah, if we get that injury update about Ronaldo and he's fully fit, coming back firing for a double game week, as a United fan, there's no way I can't captain him. And this is like the reason you have Ronaldo in your team for a double game week. So I can't see me going far away from him. He'll definitely be the vice, if not the captain, unless we get some bad injury news. I sit and hopefully he brings down the points to me and Charlie. Maybe not Sam thinking the same, but by the sounds of it, we all want Watford to win like 5-0 in both fixtures. So then we'll all be in the points. But yeah, hopefully they're all penalties for Watford rather than Dennis scoring with his low XG every time. But we shall see. So I think that gives a quick roundup on that as well, guys. Is there anything else we wanted to touch on for that game week? When you scroll down the fixtures, it's a bit of a, looks like a mega game week with all those doubles, but I don't think there's any huge assets, and it's just a key to wait until the deadline's for transfers for everything that's going on. I think that's the key message, unless you guys have got anything to add on top of that.
Yeah, not really. I think just how stretched, like you said, that game week is across quite a few dates, particularly with the Friday kickoff as well. It does just make it quite difficult because we won't know. It's absolutely feasible that any of those maybe Saturday games get called off, and it will be after the deadline because of the Friday deadline. So you can only do what you can and make your moves as late as possible, probably on that Friday, with as much information as you can get as possible. But in the end, we're just all subject to the elements and the COVID. So.
Definitely. I think we mentioned as well, just in our teams, about the Son to maybe a Leicester asset, and Leicester's probably one of the teams at the minute that's the highest risk of postponement, as they've said that other game postponed, haven't they? So that just puts us down again with our transfer. So get as much information as you can. Late transfers, probably 2 seconds before the deadline, unless the site crashes again. But we shall see. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Sam?
I don't think so. I think we're all good.
Good stuff. Thank you both again, and we'll probably be more routinely now because the game weeks fall a bit nicer rather than over the Christmas period. So I expect we should be back again next week. That is the plan, at least. And thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Charlie and Sam, again, and we will see you on the next one. Have a great rest of your evening.